I do some roundtables for executive directors, CEOs, and for board chairs. And it doesn't matter what the title of the session is, the questions always come back to recruitment. As everybody wants to know how to recruit, but sometimes they don't want to listen to how to do it because it's not difficult, but it's very time consuming and it's very strategic and it takes effort and everybody wants the board yesterday. So it's sort of like there's a Grantland cartoon. Grantland is it's in some of our, I think it's the foundation newsletter, and it's a wonderful series that deals with our industry. But this particular one has the board chair sitting alone, this is important, at the board table, talking about how we believe board service is so important. That's why we have the strictest rules about who we bring on. No pulse, no board seat. But see, then it doesn't end there. It goes on to say, well, we have sometimes made exceptions to that rule. Yes, okay, now we see the problem. I can tell you some of the things that you don't do. Some of the things you don't do is just go out and find the biggest names, the people who sit on every other board. You know, you were talking about conflict of interest earlier. One of the worst conflicts of interest is getting people who sit on multiple boards. What hat do they wear today? Who are they going out and advocating for today? Are they raising money? Who are they going out to raise money for today? It confuses the public. It confuses them. And, you know, there are people who feel very proud of, oh, I sit on 12 boards. How can you be effective? So, you know, we want to be sure that, number one, we're not just going after the same old, same old. First of all, those people are probably so worn out. They've been there, they've done it, they don't necessarily want to join your board, and maybe you can twist their arm, but does that mean they're going to be an effective board member for you? Probably not. So we don't want to necessarily go in that direction. There was an interesting study done of for-profit corporation boards a number of years ago. It ran in the Wall Street Journal, and it showed that out of 550 corporations, there was 3.5 degrees of separation between any two board members on any of those 550 organizations. That's pretty amazing. And I find in the nonprofit corporations, that's even less. I mean, that's just a feeling I have, but from working with as many boards as I do. So part of our problem is we're going back to the same well again and again and again. The other thing you don't want to necessarily do is just go for affluence and influence. I kept saying something's wrong with this picture because everybody was saying, how do we get affluence and influence? How do we get affluence and influence? I mentioned this man, David Renz, earlier today. One of the other studies he did was the impact of affluence and influence and found they did worse. We think it's the answer to our prayers that these are the people who are going to open our doors. They're going to find us money. They're going to find us contact. And I was so glad that that study came out, I've got to tell you, because it affirmed for me what I've been feeling for a very long time. So we know who we don't want. And part of the issue then is to figure out who we do want and how we're going to best get that those people. The first thing, I told you that it takes a strategic approach. And the first plan is, what are your needs? Where do we want to be in 3 years? And what are the skills and the characteristics we need to be successful 3 years down the road? We need people who are comfortable with uncertainty. Right now, there's a major focus on the different values associated with different ages. because each of us has grown up with a peer cohort that has instilled within us the way we look at the world. It's so interesting to me when you get a group of baby boomers around the table and then you get one or two Gen Xers, let's say, and they don't look at the world in the same way at all. And yet, if we're going to have a future in the organization, we need the Gen Xers, we need the Gen Ats or the Gen Ys or whatever you want to call the group that's younger, the millennials, because that's where the future is. If we have all mature generation or the greatest generation, whatever you want to call that, and baby boomers, what happens in another 10 years? The organization is gone. It's very important that we appreciate what each group brings and that we make sure that we have the balance because that is, as I say, that is our future. We want people with different networks, with different spheres of influence because, again, if we get all people who come from the same neighborhood, their reach is just limited. They're not going to be able to bring to the organization all that we need.